Democratic Republic of the Congo, also abbreviated to as the DRC or referred to as just the Congo, is an African nation that has had a really tough relationship with the Belgians. But before we get to that relationship, we need to rewind and recap to what the Congo actually is. The Congo is an African nation that is almost landlocked, with only a 40-kilometer long stretch of coast. It lies in Central Africa and has a population of around 102 million people. It has an area of about 2.1 million square kilometers and is currently one of the poorest countries out there. This is mainly due to its colonial period, which it gained independence from in 1960, when it was under rule by King Leopold II of Belgium. Before there was the DRC, and before there was the Congo Free State, we'll talk about that later, there was the Kingdom of Congo, spelled with a K. This was thought to be the fusion of two separate kingdoms, and they lived their lives as an agricultural community, mainly farming and tending to their animals. Their economy was relatively stable, and they had a very unique power structure at the time. At the top, it was the king, and below him were chiefs and tribesmen. The chiefs and tribesmen would collect taxes from the people below and send them off to the king. This may seem very modern, but in 1885, things are about to change because King Leopold II has come to Africa and had declared that it was no longer the Kingdom of Congo, but it's now the Congo Free State, the CFS. He first took the most northern side. Then he started conquering more and more until eventually, by the time 1908 rolled around, all of the Kingdom of Congo was now the Congo Free State. But we know for a fact that they were there for money. They turned the agricultural community into a very extractorial one, where the villagers were forced to put down their plows and seeds and pick up knives and hunting gear to hunt down rhinos and elephants for their ivory. They also farmed a lot of rubber. And to do all of this extraction, King Leopold and his men were not going to just tell the crippled community of the Congo to just work. Because the Congolese, they hated King Leopold. They thought that he was just some tyrannical dictator that wanted to oppose the peace that they had brought upon the land. So, King Leopold's men just turned a majority of the Congolese into slaves. They put them inside of these camps and plantations where they were forced to work for days on end without breaks. And their payment was practically non-existent at the time. But the Congolese are strong people. They don't just do what others tell them to do. So several protests arose to oppose King Leopold's rule. But unfortunately, King Leopold just shut down these protests with brutal force. Thousands, even millions, were executed at his hand. Literally, their hands were cut off after they were tortured for a warning that, hey, you probably should not be mad at this guy. The Congolese population was so damaged by these protests that their population was reduced by half. Around 10 million Congolese were killed during their colonial period. This marked a very, very dark era in their history. And it is an era still remembered today. But not only because of the mass killings, but also because the people who died, the King Leopold needed a workforce still, so that he's not going to let that slide. So what he did was he took European men from other countries and made them work in the same plantations, the same area as the Congolese. And this caused a lot of racism and racial stereotyping between the two, because the white Europeans were treated so much better and with so much more respect than the black Congolese. The Europeans were given less taxes and more resources. Meanwhile, the black Europeans had more laws and more strict regulations. But this sparks a moral question. To what extent do the motivations outweigh the consequences? Well, we can see here that the Belgians' motivations of conquering Congo were for money, and that's it. They just wanted money, lots of money, and especially during World War II, where money was scarce and demand for ivory was high. But the consequences were life-changing, nation-changing. It damaged their economy, it damaged their social structures, and it made them fall behind in a large majority of categories compared to the rest of the world. So the answer to this question is the consequences far outweigh whatever motivations the Belgians had in the first place. So if you didn't really understand what I said in the past few minutes, just know this. The Belgians, specifically King Leopold II, played a significant role in the Congo's history by heavily, completely restructuring their economy and government to fit their extractorial needs. Their reconstruction